So Christian Sakura says, I've heard people like Tom Holland and Jordan Peterson struggle with the idea of the Christ event being the center of history, usually pointing at things so far away from him, like the dinosaurs or other solar systems, that it could never be relevant to those things. At the same time, they seem to accept the permeating presence of hierarchy everywhere. Could you make a convincing argument from a hierarchy of moments or events in which Christ at the top and present all thought out it? In which Christ at the top and present all thought out it. I'm sorry, I don't understand your phrasing. I think C.S. Lewis tried to do this in his mystical dance at the end of Paralandra, but it's hard to translate out of its poetic language. Okay, so this is really, it's difficult to explain this to someone, let's say this type of person, but it has to do with what I said before in terms of the union of extremes in Christ. And it also has to do with the revelation on the cross, the revelation that the lamb on the altar is that there. Okay, so it has to do with the fact that Christians, we now put the altar in the Holy of Holies. That there is a mystery which is shown in Christianity, which is that all reality is based on sacrifice. But the sacrifice that Christ offers is like all the sacrifices together. This is something, by the way, if you listen, I'm just going to keep plugging this podcast nonstop. But if you listen to the Lord of Spirits podcast, Father Stephen and Father Andrew did one on the atonement, which was amazing, where they talk about the two extremes of Yom Kippur, the two extremes of the Day of Atonement, which is this like goat going out to the edge of the world, and then this goat used to sanctify the holy place, right? These two extremes. And what Father Stephen shows, which is totally right, is that Christ is both goats. He's both at the same time. And so it's hard because it's like there's so much ignorance. There's so much ignorance now. And I wonder sometimes if it's not a function of Christ himself. Like if Christ also didn't blind us or blind some aspect of us to the mystery that he was revealing to us. And so we can't totally see all of it. We get these little parts of it. We get these sparks. We see these lights, but it's like it's this everlasting revelation where you constantly are like, oh, wait a minute. It's like he has all these aspects into it. So I see, for example, like I have some glimpse of how Christ unites all these opposites, but then I know that there are some things I'm still missing. I know for sure. And so, so I think it's very difficult to explain it. And it's mostly what it's doing, maybe. Like if you can notice what it's doing, if you can notice what Christ is doing in the world. And if you can understand, for example, that Christ contains Antichrist, like even that, like if you can understand how Christ in his own story. So like what other character, for example, like, so I don't know, maybe you can find one in the story. It's like, what other story is there a character who chooses his own betrayer and rides that story out, like rides out being betrayed from within, right? And then coming to the end of that, right? And so it's like the idea that Christ prophesizes his own demise in terms of his own death, and he chose Judas, but then you can see that as a cosmic scale. So you can see that the decline of Christianity is part of the pattern. And I've said this many times before. It's like atheism could just come out of Christianity. They couldn't come out of anything else. Like this mass atheism, which comes and rises up and then destroys Christianity, is part of the story. It's part of the non-duality of the story which Christ is revealing. This is what makes him the center of everything, is that he also contains his own dissolution. It's like, what the heck, man? That story, I can't get over it.